The elephant in the room is a problem that everyone is aware of, but no one wants to talk about. It happens everywhere, including in the voice acting community. I'm Rebecca Amber Clark, and today I'm going head-to-head with the elephant in the studio, fan dubs and copyright. If you're an anime fan and you have an internet connection, chances are pretty good that you've watched at least one fan-dubbed anime episode, or part of one. It's pretty clear that fan-dubbing a show is almost always illegal, but there are still countless fan-dubs out there. Why is that? Where did the whole concept of a fan-dub even come from? Rewind to the USA in the 1980s. For those of you who weren't around back then, here's a quick recap. We were all Lego maniacs, My Little Pony was for little girls, and the few people who had internet were using a version you'd probably find almost unrecognizable. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and even Vocaloid wouldn't exist for another 2 decades. Some anime had been available in the USA for several years by then, but nowhere near the constant flood of new releases available today. In fact, if you mentioned the word anime to the average person back then, they'd most likely have replied, "What's that?" Of course, there were anime fans out there, and for those fans, supply just couldn't meet demand. So, some dedicated fans took it upon themselves to add English subtitles to some of the anime that hadn't been translated by the official studios. These were the early fan subs. I'm not sure the exact year these fan subs began to surface, but from what I can tell, it was somewhere in the late 70s to 80s. As we slide into the 1990s and 2000s, a few fan dubs start to join the scene as well. Anime becomes more recognizable to the mainstream public. AnimeCon appears for the first time in 1991. It was sort of a snowball effect. In the 90s, the response, "Anime? What's that?" turned into, "Anime? What, you mean like Pokemon?" At the same time, amateur voice acting was gaining a foothold as a growing online hobby. So it was only a matter of time before groups of voice actors started getting together and dubbing anime shows to share online. Think the ultimate fantasy football team, but for voice acting in their favorite shows. Today, many fan dubs have very high-quality standards and can be hard to tell from the official dubs. The problem is, why pay for the original when you can get a fan dub that is just as good for free? You might not want to admit it, but this can and does hurt the anime studios who work hard to create the shows in the first place. It's one reason that I have so little sympathy for any voice actors who complain about being asked to work for free, while they themselves make fan dubs of anime. It's literally stealing. Now, I've heard the argument many times. If you don't sell your fan dub or make any money off of it, then it's legal. Some people will tell you that absolutely the only way to get in trouble for making a fan dub and posting it online is if you profit from it. This just isn't true. Even if you don't make money, you're still stealing from the company and giving it away for free so they can't make money. It's just like the scene in Disney's Aladdin, where Princess Jasmine stole an apple to give to the hungry child on the streets. She didn't sell that apple or make any money off it at all, but she still stole it from the apple merchant. The fact that she didn't realize she was stealing didn't matter either. It was still stealing. The same goes for putting up a disclaimer. Saying you're not breaking copyright laws while you break them is sort of like hitting your brother while yelling, "I'm not touching you!" However, there are situations where you can dub over an existing anime or other type of show without getting into legal trouble, and others that are more in a gray area. So let's talk about something a lot of people have heard of in the last couple of years, mostly thanks to the Fine brothers trying to trademark the word react in early 2016, fair use. There are plenty of videos and websites out there that explain the 4 factors of fair use really well, so instead of doing it again here, I'll just leave links to a couple of those in the video's description. Does fair use apply to fan dubs? Well, it depends on your definition of a fan dub. Abridged series, like Little Karibo's Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, are technically fan dubs, in the sense that it involves Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans dubbing over original Yu-Gi-Oh! Footage with their own voices. But abridged series are parodies, and usually are so changed and warped from the original that if someone wants to actually watch Yu-Gi-Oh!, the abridged series just isn't going to cut it. Even so, Little Karibo has had to face plenty of battles to keep his abridged show going. On the other hand, if you take an entire episode or series, remove the original voices and replace them with your own, that is something that replaces the original work. Even if you're translating the show into another language, because you're stealing the market for the audience that speaks that language from the original company. Just because a show hasn't been dubbed into English yet, for example, doesn't mean it never will be in the future. Fair use also takes into consideration how you're using the copyrighted material. In this case, the show you're dubbing. For example, whether you're just dubbing an episode of an anime for a school project, or if you plan to upload it online to a site like Vimeo or YouTube for the world to see. The thing is, nobody can tell you whether or not your fan dub will be protected by fair use until and unless you get sued and taken to court when a judge rules on your specific case. That's even if you get taken to court at all. Which brings me to another argument I've heard very often for fan dubs. There's so many of them out there that you'll never get sued. You won't get in trouble, so it's fine. You might technically be breaking copyright, but the companies don't mind. Well, guess what? There's a really simple way to find out if the company minds, and that is writing to them to ask permission for your fan dub before you make it. If you have written permission from the copyright holders, then you're in the clear. If you don't want to ask permission because you're afraid they'll say no, then you should think about what that means. If they'll say no if you ask, then it means that they do actually mind. Now, will you get sued for making a fan dub? I have no clue. It's true that there are a lot of fan dubs out there, and it's true that the companies can only go after so many of them. So you might make fan dubs for years and never have so much as a copyright strike on your video. Or you could be faced with a big lawsuit on the first episode of your first fan dub. How likely is it you'll be the one sued? Probably not very, but there's no guarantee either. The point is, does getting away with it make it right? If you steal money out of the cash register at the grocery store and you never get caught, does that mean you didn't steal? That you didn't break the law? I'll leave this off here at that thought. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the video, or it gave you something to think about, consider subscribing to catch future episodes. What's your opinion about fan dubs? I'd like to hear from you, so please share your thoughts in the comment section. Remember, these elephant in the studio problems can never be solved unless we all start talking about them.